Hey everyone, in this video I wanted to spotlight Physics, which is a class that you can use in Tabletop Simulator, as we're going to use this as an alternate to scripting zones, which a lot of people are familiar with, but I don't see a whole lot of people using Physics. In the video today we are going to use it to build a restock cards function, just something very basic. You can get pretty advanced with this. I'm not going to go incredibly deep. I just want to show how it works. And we're basically just going to check for missing cards. And if there are some, we're going to restock. I left the debugging on here. So when I hit this button, you'll see those little squares pop up. When you turn debugging off, they won't. But so obviously I push that button, nothing happens. If I were to take some of these cards away, it'll restock them. Take them all away, it'll restock them all. The nice thing about using Physics as opposed to a scripting zone is I'm checking off of this flattened cube. So if I were to move that over there and hit this button, it's still going to work. So I am going to open up a new table space. So the first things we'll need to do this is going to be some cards. I was using the cards from the Pokemon Splendor mod that I did. Here we go. Here's that deck of cards, and then you'll need a couple of things to I keep going in the wrong place. You'll also need a couple of things. One of them you'll need to put a button on. We'll just use a couple of cubes. And the other one you'll use as a play surface. So let's make that play surface. So you can make this a different color if you want. Let's go with orange. Okay. And then you want to grab your gizmo. And we want to make this 10, make this 5, make this 0.02 to make it nice and flat. You could do 0.1. Okay. Let's raise this up a little bit. Hit L on your keyboard, or you can right click and lock here. Toggle lock. Switch back to your finger tool. Just make sure that that's still floating. Let's throw a couple snaps in here. I'm going to do rotational snaps. You don't have to. Just put in 3 like I had. They don't have to be perfect. We're just doing this for the video. And then you can push L again, and now those snap points are attached to the flattened cube and not your table surface, which happens quite a bit if you try to place those with the snap tool on an object laying on the table. So now we need to save the game, so when we do our scripting changes, the objects that we've imported will stay. Let's make it physics tutorial. Okay. Let me load my save. Physics tutorial, load it, yes. Okay, that's working now. So our objects are saved, which is what we want. Now we need to jump to VS Code. We're gonna get rid of this stuff. So let's go ahead and do the function that's going to do the casting. We're going to call this check for missing. And we're going to pass it an object and a position. Okay. The object that we're going to pass it will be the flattened cube. We're going to go local object to check. And we'll set that to the object that we're going to pass it. And the positions that we're going to pass this thing are actually the positions of the snap point on the flattened cube. So we're going to have to loop through those, but we're going to do that in the other function that we're going to make. But we're going to call this snap pause. We'll set that to the position that we're going to pass. Now let's go ahead and start working with our physics. So it returns a table of things that it hits. So let's make that. We're going to call it hit list. We want to set it equal to Physics.cast, and notice that I did capitalize the P. You do need to do that. And now we're going to pass this a table of some parameters. We need to give it an origin, which is just going to be where the ray, which is what we're going to use, those little squares. Effectively, it's a line. Where does it originate? So we want it to originate from the orange flattened cube, which we are calling object to check. And we need to change that from its local position to the world position. So let's do that. We're going to change it to position to world. If we don't do this, then everything is going to be smooshed and not what you want. Okay, so we're referencing the world position of that, and we want to use the position of the snap point. And I'm going to leave it like that for now, which is wrong, but I want to show you why it will be wrong. We want to give this a direction. You need to give it a direction, otherwise this won't work. So we want it to go upwards, so we're going to set that to 1 on that vector in the second position there. Let's go ahead and set the distance. You can usually do about 3 and be fine. And then we want to set the type. 1 is a ray, not an array. And that's what we're going to use here. And debug, we're going to set that to true so we can see the little squares pop up when we run this. Okay, so that is a good start. We also then need to loop through the hits that we get. So let's build a loop. Oops, we'll go pairs. Hit list do. If hits dot hit object is not equal to the object to check, because the way this is going to work, it's always going to hit itself. We don't care about the orange cube that we flattened. So we want to exclude that from any sort of logic that we perform, unless your use case wants that. We're going to return the thing that it hit. In this case, we're not actually doing anything with that. I'm returning it here to break out. And then we actually do want to return nil here. So if it doesn't find anything, this function will return nil. The other thing that we need to make is the function to restock our cards. So let's work on that. And here, we're going to need to get a couple of GUIDs. So let me jump back over to Tabletop. So we'll need the GUID of the orange cube, and we're going to need the GUID of this deck. And while we're in here, I'm going to right click on this other cube that I put in. I'm going to go to scripting editor, and that will open another Lua file for that cube over in VS Code, which we are now going to go back into. Working with deck GUIDs is not a good idea. What you should do is either use a scripting zone or place that deck on something and use a Physics.cast to locate it. For the purposes of this tutorial, it's just, we're going to do it incorrectly a little bit, just so we can get everything going. So let's go ahead and set some variables here. Cardboard. Copy that. And draw deck. Copy that. Oh, we don't need that. Okay, so we have those. Let's go ahead and do stuff with those within our restock function. Object to check. Oh, oops, I don't want object to check. That's from the other function. Cardboard object. Object from GUID. You don't have to set these as variables here and then call them. I typically do. It's a little easier if you need to reference this over and over again, or if this GUID were to change, you only need to change it once instead of every other place that you had it. So it's a good habit to get into. I just call this draw deck to object, actually. Draw deck object, just to keep it consistent. We want that to be draw deck. So we also need the snap points. Oh, we want to use cardboard object dot get snap points, and that is going to be a table of snap points that we're going to iterate over. So let's go ahead and make that loop. So we don't care about the index, which is the first part of a loop. I'm going to go over points. In I pairs. Object snaps. Do. Okay. So this loop is going to iterate over every snap point that we get from the cardboard object. So if not missing, and this is why I made the function return nil. So if check for missing returns something, this if condition will not be met. We need to pass this an object, and we're going to pass it cardboard object. We also need to pass it a position. We're going to pass it the position of the point that we're currently looking at. Then we want to take a card from the draw deck, take object, and oops, let's pass this a position. Okay, let's do this wrong again, just so I can show you something. Okay, so these positions are wrong. We'll fix them in a moment, but I want to show you what happens when they are like this. And you'll probably accidentally do this, so I'd like to spotlight this. We also need a button or something. You could use a scripting button, whatever. I'm just going to throw this on that other square that I made. So let's make some button parameters. Table of parameters. I called that restock, right? Yep. Okay. So we want to use the restock function. Function owner is global because it's in global. I forgot a comma here, that's why it's pissed. Label, which is going to be the text on the button. Restock cards. Width 1000. These don't really matter. Position. We want to put that a little high because otherwise it'll spawn the button right in the middle of your cube. And then the rotation. You don't have to set this, but if you don't, when your button spawns, it'll be upside down. You have to rotate your cube, which is not a big deal. But if we just set it now, it'll be correct. And then I'm going to do self, create button, and we want to use these button params. Okay, and then this should all be wrapped in onload, but it'll work without it being. But you should put this in onload. I'm not going to fix it. So if we go over to tabletop, you can see this cube now has a button on it. It's floating above it a little bit. You can tweak that. This is, again, just for the purposes of demonstration. So if we click it, that's not where we want the cards to go, is it? But you do see as well those three dots blasting up. So the cast is where we want, but the cards aren't going where we want. So we need to fix that. Also, the problem with working with deck grids, if I just blast through this, I have 2 cards left. So this is going to bomb out now because it doesn't know where that deck is anymore. And this deck, even if I put it right back there, we're never referencing that deck position. So that's why it's bad. Back to coding. So I'm going to do a Control-Alt-S to reload tabletop, which you didn't see, but just puts things back so the GUIDs are correct again. So it's wrong because we aren't referencing the world position down here. So if I actually changed this, and we just use the position of the snaps, that clump of snap points that was perfectly hitting with the cards where we want based on our snap points should be clumped up now. Yeah, you can see the 3 cubes coming out right here. So that's not what we want. So we just need to convert all those positions to world positions. So I'm going to just undo that. Save that. So, like I said, that's not too bad to fix. So we need these positions here to be world positions. Well, this one we don't, because we're actually handling the conversion up here within check for missing, but this position we need to correct. So we care about the cardboard. And we want the world position. And then we want the point position. And save that. Now, if we go back over to tabletop, things should behave a little nicer. Oh look, the cards go where we want. And I didn't get the snaps perfectly lined up or anything, so these cards there's a little overlap, but that's okay. If I move this, cards are always going to go where they're supposed to go. And you can do a lot more with housekeeping. Obviously, if you're restocking cards, depending on the game, you may or may not want these to be face up, so we could fix that. So if we went back over to coding, and on our take object, if we just add another parameter here, flip true, do a save, tabletop, and do that. Now they're flipping. So that is the end of the very, very basic restock that you can do with physics. I'm going to go ahead and pull up this mod, actually, the Pokemon Splendor mod that I made, and show you the code that I used to do the restock for that mod. So here's the Pokemon Splendor mod. Go ahead and start the game. It doesn't really matter. And let me jump over to VS Code. Here's all the messy code. It's not the worst. I am doing this on player turn passes. Yeah. So when somebody passes their turn, I'm restocking cards. I'm also updating the scores on the bottom of their player mat. But if we take a look at my restock cards, I don't know where it is. Here. Okay. So I'm grabbing the decks, which I've written a get deck for, which is using physics casting to get them. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Let's collapse everything. Control K1 in VS Code is a shortcut to collapse all of your functions. So I need to find my casting function. Where is it? Let's clean up. Oh, there it is. There's cast up. Cast up. And there's restock. So let me just move this over here. Okay. All right, there we go. Put some spaces there. Okay. So I've got the restock here, and it's using this cast up, which is kind of like the tutorial we just went through. So I'm using a Physics.cast. I wanted to actually comment on that, and I forgot, but I'm glad I'm looking at my own code here. So in the example, I didn't shift this position with a negative vector. I'm adding to this position of a -2. Sometimes when you do this, you won't hit anything based on the starting position. So if you shift this down by some negative number, if you add a vector and then put a negative number in the second position here, it'll lower the origin, and then it'll blast up through the object you're casting from, and then you'll find things to hit. So this is relatively the same code that we have in the example, and then we're looping. So here I'm looking for crap that is either a card or a deck, and then I'm going to return it. So pretty much the exact same function, except my hit condition is a little different. So up here is where I'm restocking. Like I said, I'm getting all the decks. I've got the game board object, and I've grabbed the snaps from it. We're looping through the snaps just like before. I'm changing the position of the game board object to world positions, and the same sort of thing. So if the casting up function doesn't hit anything, I want to do stuff. Now here's where it gets fatter, the code. So the way I have this set up is I'm looking for tags. All the snap points in that mod are tagged, at least the ones on the game board, the relevant ones. If the deck is not gone, and it will be sometimes, then let's do some stuff. So if it's a deck, then we can use take object, because you can take objects from containers, and a deck is considered a container. If there's only one card left, it's no longer a deck, it's just a card. So then we have to do this. We have to flip it and then set the position. And I'm doing that for the level 1 deck, the level 2 deck, the 3, the rare, and the legendaries. So if I jump back over to the Pokemon mod. Oh, I don't know if this will work. It might, because I'm in here by myself. So if I pull a bunch of these cards off. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. And then pass my turn. No, it won't work. Did I leave restock on a player button down? No. Okay, hang on. Let me show you this. So okay, back to tabletop. So we can set it up. I'll sit here. Now, if I take all of these cards, and I very quickly there just used unscripting button down, so I've mapped the number pad 1 key to my restock function here. So you can see it checked all of those holes. I turned the debugging off because you don't need it in a release, but all of these cards will be from the correct decks. You can see level 1 deck, level 2, level 3. You can look at the backs, and it does work with this stuff too. Oops. Let's take you and you. Flip all those back over. Oops. Okay. There we go. And then I push 1. Those are good. Like I was saying, the cool thing about using the scripting button downs is so let's get these level 3 cards, and we're just gonna we're gonna delete that apparently. I thought I pushed 1. So that deck is gone though. So if I push 1 right now, top row isn't restocking, and I guess I can move some so I can prove that I'm pushing 1. So there's 1, top row is nothing. But it is looking for a deck in this position with the right tags. So now if I push 1, those cards will fill in from this deck that has a different GUID. All right, and that is the end of this physics tutorial. Hopefully I wasn't too confusing or too rambly with this. I want to do some more with physics. I want to show off the sphere and the box types 2 and 3, because there's different applications that you can use this for. I like using the snap point looping system for card restock. I think it works really well. And again, I like it because if I move this whole board, or you have a player that does, nothing breaks. Everything will still go to where it should go in relationship to the snap points on the board, because we're looking at world positions and we're looking at a board, not a static zone that is just mapped somewhere to the table. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I will do the best I can to help you out, answer your questions. If you've made it all the way to the end, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and let me know if I could have explained anything better, differently, or if you think it was perfect as is. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.